All right, guys. So Conquest gameplay in the background because I'm too lazy to actually put anything else up. But I don't know if I'm just like the greatest at timing in the entire world. Like I don't know if I chose the exact right moment. But the other day we did like a random one-off stream highlight from the other day where I was talking about Malgus potentially being a pilot for the new Sith fleet and blah 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 blah, and the option that they could make, you know, a Sith GL of some kind or a GL of some kind as a pilot of that Sith fleet and not Nihilus instead. And then I think the same day that that came out, that was like a pre-scheduled thing. The same day that that came out, we got Arnold, who did a nice little video talking about a number of topics that were very interesting. And I like it when he does kind of that like loose form stuff, kind of like how we do here, where we just turn the camera on and talk, and you know, information comes out and we kind of shake hands and go our separate ways with a little bit of information gained and a little bit of brain cells lost. But outside of, you know, the bigger, more important topics like GLA and stuff like that, something that he touched on very briefly that I wanted to speak on for a couple of minutes here, the possibility that Red 5 is piloted by not Luke Skywalker, which is, you know, I don't know about you guys. I don't know where you are in the lore. You know, I can't say that I'm the greatest lore expert in the world, but I would figure that if we got a Red 5, which they've been teasing at, and I think they've been kind of trolling us just for the sake of trolling us, but, you know, eventually we're going to get a Red 5. I think we all know that. I would assume, personally, and let me know in the comment section if you agree with this, that Luke would be the pilot of Red 5. I think it's fair to say that as far as who is the most well-known pilot of that ship, I would argue that it would be a version of Luke Skywalker. Now, for a number of years, I have been wanting, you know, I don't even know if it's a number of years, but the second that Omicrons came out, I wanted a pilot Luke, so like a separate Luke that wasn't in the game, you know, maybe a shitty actual character, but, you know, exists just for the sake of being the pilot. With his little jumpsuit, he would have a 3v3 Omicron, and he would work with Wedge and Biggs. Like, for literally before 3v3 Omicrons were a thing, I wanted an Omicron that had direct synergy with the three of those characters. And I always thought that, you know, that would be a possibility for something that they would do. You know, a pilot Luke that would go with the other pilots, and kind of in that vein when Omicrons were starting to come out, you know, the Qui-Gons and the Zams, they were bringing up teams, right? And I thought that that would make great sense. I've since kind of said, you know, maybe it'll be a Jedi Knight Luke, or maybe it'll be a CLS or something, like some sort of Luke, maybe even a Farm Boy Luke, in the vein of not a lot of people have Farm Boy Luke, and therefore would get people to invest. And then a couple years later, we got the whole Arnold talked about Gerbil's video. Gerbil's actually a guildmate of mine, great guy. I think I've promoted his channel a number of times on here. He had the video basically saying CG would make the most possible money with GL Leia in these certain requirements. Therefore, you know, if we go under the assumption that CG wants to make the most possible money, it would be GL Leia, right? So I just always assumed that some sort of CLS type Luke character would be a requirement of Red 5. But now we're getting confirmation, and, you know, people leak a lot of stuff, right? There's you know, the beta program is kind of reduced to a couple of people now, and there's just always leaks. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm a big fan of leaks. I know you guys are very aware that I enjoy when things get leaked, because, you know, contrary to CG's wishes, you know, it allows you to prep, you know, accordingly and stuff like that. You know, CG had the one time that they actually had a huge advance notice of stuff to come, when they had the profundity requirements like way earlier, and it allowed me to free to play get the profundity month 2. And it has been one of the best things to ever happen to my roster, and massively has increased my enjoyment in the game, but also my skill in Grand Arena, which I think it's very clear that you guys know we haven't played Grand Arena in about 3 months because of work and stuff like that. But I am preparing to ramp back up. We are going to actually play Grand Arenas, which should be fun. But all of that kind of jumbled together to back to the main point. A galactic legend Rey as the pilot of Red 5 is what I took away from his video, and I'm a little concerned about that. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the worst thing in the world. You know, we have characters like Reva who are, you know, very specific to endgame and kind of only really need to be worried about by endgame players, right? I don't think that Reva's total domination in Squad Arena and GAC is going to affect many people, right? I like Galactic Legends when they first came out affected a lot of people, I would say, because every Squad Arena had one and there was crystals in Squad Arena. But now the way money-based matchmaking works, you're going to face a lot of backbone teams, a lot of people with all their core 8 teams, a lot of people with more GLs than you, better ships than you. But the one thing that you don't really face are the super, super, super hard to get things, because the super, super hard to get things tend to require super, super invested players, and super, super invested players don't fall in Grand Arena to where they're not supposed to be, right? Like, when we were 5 million GP and our opponents were 8 million GP, those, even though they were much bigger than us and they had a lot more Galactic Legends and blah, 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 right? Like, they weren't super invested. So I wouldn't have had to worry about them having a Riva back in the day, right? And if Rey is a pilot for Red 5, I think it's going to be in a very similar vein to Riva, to where it's going to be completely overpowered and unimaginably broken, and there's going to be a ton of outrage. But in practicality, in actual implementation in Grand Arena, I don't think it's going to come up for a lot of people outside of those people who are up there. You know what I mean? Like the people who are spending, the Arnolds and the Xeris, the people who are spending a ton of money to stay up at the top, those people are going to have to worry. But those people are invested. They have those things. So it's not going to be a big issue. There are a couple of people like Calvin and stuff like that, where they're big, high end game players and stuff like that aren't spending money. And of course they have to do, they have to kind of live without the Jabbas or live without the Afras and stuff like that. Live without the Rivas, maybe live without the Rey pilot Red 5s and yada, yada, yada. But I don't think for a big enough majority of players, it's going to be a big deal, if that makes sense. I don't want it to happen, because I think an iconic ship that people are going to want to play with shouldn't be paywalled like that. I think, like Mando, they did a very good job of making Mando accessible. I think when Grogu comes to the game, that's going to be the big one. If Grogu is not like an easy character to get, like if Grogu doesn't have like a BAM event where it requires, maybe call it 5 marquee characters, but it only requires them at gear 8 or gear 9, right? I think characters like that, like Red 5, I think those characters should be accessible. I think they should be good, right? BAM wasn't great. I hope Grogu's amazing, but I think characters like that should be good. Like Darth Vader. Darth Vader is really, 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 really good. The most valuable free-to-play character in the entire game. But he's not JMK, he's not Lord Vader, he's not Jabba, right? So I'm just a little afraid that they're going to take something that is going to be exciting and going to be incredibly powerful, I'm sure. And they are going to unfortunately make it to like Riva. Like imagine if Riva, like take Riva's kit and the Grand Inquisitor team, but imagine it's imagine it's Grogu or a character that you actually like, whoever that character is for you. I guess let me know in the comment section what that one character is for you that isn't in the game. For me, I'd probably say Gunji or Grogu. But whatever that one character is for you, like imagine if that character comes to the game and that it's going to be years before you have them. How would that make you feel? That's what I'm afraid is going to happen if Red 5 is piloted by Galactic Legend Rey, right? At the end of the day, that's my big fear, is that we're going to have a character that people are going to be really excited about, but they're not going to be able to get. And I'm a little worried about that. So that was my little 8-minute rant for today. Join the Patreon for roster reviews. I love you. Bye-bye. Woo!